Good morning, my name is John Gabriel. I'm an interviewer for the Public Library in Hamilton County, downtown Cincinnati. Today I'm interviewing John Sullivan on August 21, 2007 at the main library in Cincinnati, Ohio. Our camera operator today is Dennis Daly. Thank you for being here, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, glad to be here.
Wonderful. Tell us, let's start off with a little bit about what you did before World War II started.
Well, I usually start, I started December the 7th, 1941. Prior to that, at that time I was a junior in the University of Cincinnati. I had graduated from Walnut Hills High School in '39 and had 2 years in University of Cincinnati, and in December the 7th I was a junior at the university.
I see. How'd you hear?
Lived with my parents and just knew mostly schoolwork at that age. That's all I'd done.
When you heard about the bombing at Pearl Harbor, where were you?
In bed on a Sunday morning. I had just joined a fraternity at the University of Cincinnati, and we had a party that night. And I was out kind of late, and I came home and went to bed, and my mother came in about 10 o'clock, I think, Sunday morning, and said that there had been a bombing at Pearl Harbor. That's the first I knew about it.
Well, when did you then get into the service?
Well, of course, the war, the talk of war, and what am I going to do now? I had to register with the draft board, and I knew that I was ripe for being called right away. And I really wanted to complete my education if I could, if there was some way to do it. And the Navy and the Marine Corps came out with a program that as a college student, if I enlisted now, they would defer me until I got my degree, which was scheduled for June of 1943. So in June 22nd of 42, I enlisted in the Marine Corps.
I see.
And I was deferred, although I had to start taking different correspondence courses, map reading, and you name it. I had, along with my other college studies, right up until the time of graduation in '43. I do remember that I did not even get to attend the graduation ceremonies. I was gone.
Wow.
Just that tight. A week or so before graduation ceremonies, I have been advised that I made it. I'm graduated. I'm finished. And I got an AB degree, but also I got the letter from the Marine Corps saying report to Parris Island.
Oh boy.
So I was gone.
How'd you get down to Parris Island?
Yes, that's a boot camp at Parris. Every Marine goes through boot camp, one way or another. One on the East Coast at Parris Island, the other one at San Diego. 2 boot camps.
So they sent you down to Parris Island, and how long was the boot camp?
Oh, I think it was about 90 days or 2 or 3 months.
Was it? Were you,
as an officer candidate?
I was
always treated as an officer candidate coming from the university.
I see.
That was the plan. That was the agreement. That I would be put in, given a chance at officers' school in the Marine Corps, and that's exactly the way it happened. But we went through boot camp like any other gyrene had to do.
Was it tough?
And then after boot camp, we were immediately made private first class, PFCs. And then we were transferred to Quantico, Virginia, which is where the Marine Corps Officers Training School is.
I see.
Quantico.
How difficult was the boot camp? Were the sergeants tough on you?
It was quite a change, I'll tell you, yeah. Quite a change. They had us, I mean, if somebody, what is it? If it moves, paint it. If it doesn't move, salute it, or something like that.
Well, how was the officer candidate school in
That
Quantico?
was tough too. It was very physically demanding, but much more scientific in the use of weaponry, and also a little bit of how to get along with men. And I thought that was very important too. So that passed in a big hurry, and I was commissioned as a second lieutenant. Took an act of Congress. That's it. You know, signed my act of Congress to become an officer, or a gentleman. So that was about. It was in the winter of '43, kind of cold in Virginia, and we were out in the woods in the pine trees, sleeping in the forest and all that good stuff. But it was all part of it, and. Physically, though, it was they pushed you to the limit.
Really?
And yeah, and I didn't realize that I was in the best shape of my life.
I'll bet. I bet those Marines whipped you into shape.
Yeah, so well, we did. One night we had night exercise. We ran all night.
Oh.
Loping through the forest, and we take an azimuth on a star for our distance, for our direction, and gauge about 1,000 or 2,000 yards and run.
Oh boy.
Three of us. So we came in, I think we came in first of all. There were groups of Marines wandering all over the forest out there. But that was part of it, and it was good training.
Must have been.
We had good instructors.
So how long after you left Quantico did you get your first assignment?
Well, I thought I needed a little more experience in handling men. I asked for an assignment of posts and stations rather than going into a combat unit. And they recognized that too. So I was assigned to a Crane Naval Ammunition Depot in Crane, Indiana for 6 months. And that, you handle the cadre there, and I got to know the feeling of military life normally. I didn't know how it would be. That was very good. We were close to Cincinnati, and we had to convoy shipments of munitions out of Cincinnati all over the United States. I didn't know what it was. It was secret. I had 2 men with me, and we would ride in the caboose of our own special caboose of a train and convoying a boxcar full of something we didn't know what it was.
Wow.
And we take it to Mare Island, California, or take it to Ipswich, Massachusetts, or take it to Norfolk Navy Yard, all over the country, just lumbering along in the freight train. I did find out that those were the proximity fuses that nobody knew about. That they fire an anti-aircraft shell up at an airplane, and it didn't have to hit the plane. It exploded when it came approximately near enough to that plane to knock it down. And that was one of the big secrets of the war.
I had no idea. Neat.
And we would deliver proximity fuses from Crosley Radio Corporation.
Is that right?
Even to British aircraft carriers in docks on the East Coast.
Were you armed at the time?
Oh, submachine guns.
No kidding.
Oh, absolutely.
Huh.
Every time that train stopped, one of my men would go on patrol around that car and let nobody near it. That was the orders.
Wow. Besides the submachine gun, what other weapons were you trained on?
Pistols.
Okay.
And a rising submachine gun.
Okay. Well, that sounds
So
like...
that lasted 6 months
Okay.
or so. And then orders came through for me to report to Camp Pendleton for attachment to the Fleet Marine Force, FMF.
Great.
And the old saying was TS, FMF.
Okay, so what approximately was the date that you got assigned to the Fleet Marine
I'm sorry?
Force? What was the approximate date when you were assigned to the Fleet Marine Force?
Well, let's see. It probably was in the summertime of maybe 44. Yeah. Yeah, because I was not in on the invasion of Saipan, but I was assigned to the 2nd Marine Division, and I was only at Pendleton for about 3 or 4 days, and then we went overseas, and went to Pearl Harbor, and then to Eniwetok, and then to Saipan.
Okay.
And I was assigned to the 8th Regiment, 2nd Battalion.
Okay.
So there I stayed.
There you stayed.
There
Good.
I stayed. I joined them on Tinian.
When you joined them on Tinian, what was the platoon doing?
81 millimeter mortar platoon.
Okay. And
That's you know what mortars.
Sure.
81 millimeter are pretty. They are the biggest weapon that a battalion has, and it shoots a high trajectory so that if the enemy's over a hill on the other side, you could stick one in his hip pocket.
I see.
And that. We had 4 guns, a platoon of 56 men, and we were attached to headquarters company because we had to serve all the companies in the battalion.
I see. And was the battalion engaged in combat when you showed up?
Yes.
So you went right into battle.
Well, yeah, we had them pretty well cornered in the end of the island at that time. It didn't seem to be that much of actual fighting, although you had to be careful what you were doing, where you were walking, and where you went. But after about 3 or 4 days, things fell apart so far as the Japanese were concerned, and we came back to our camp on Tinian, just the 8th Regiment. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was just the battalion, my battalion, because there's 3 battalions to a regiment. Maybe it was just the 2nd Battalion, but we stayed over there for about 3 weeks, and then finally got the word that we had to go back to Saipan and join the rest of the division. We liked it on Saipan, but it was all right.
What was it like? Do you remember how you felt the first night you showed up? You spent your first night on Tinian?
Oh, yes, we had, as I remember, we had an air raid.
No kidding.
And I had to make a run for the foxholes.
Were they really, did the Japanese really attack you?
Yes, they were attacking the airfield.
Uh-huh.
Isahaya airfield, whatever it was, or Eslido, I forget the name now. They were attacking the airfields because that's the source of the B-29s that were bombing Japan.
I see. Did you ever see any Japanese soldiers while you were on Tinian?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure, yeah. And we took some prisoners.
Yeah.
And sent them back over to Stockade, wherever that was, on Saipan.
I see.
Yeah. And I saw dead ones too.
Yeah, well, I imagine that if you were advancing, you probably went right past some dead ones.
Yes.
Were they putting up a good fight?
Oh, yeah. They. I have thought about that often. And it was an atmosphere that I have never been in before. And it was a feeling, you kill or you will be killed. Kill or be killed. And then along with that is that fatalistic attitude that so many had. if your number is on a bullet, it's going to get you no matter where you are. And so they'd get up and walk around and disregard a grazing fire or something like that. But a combination of those two feelings was strange.
Must have been.
If there was a Japanese soldier in the area, you felt that he's going to get you if you don't get him first. It was that simple.
Do you know whether or not you ever took care of any Japanese soldiers yourself?
Do I?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
I did. Okinawa.
Well, let's get to that.
Saipan was relatively peaceful compared to Okinawa, of course, because I was in the total on Okinawa.
Oh boy.
But the battle, the critical part of the Battle of Saipan and Tinian was actually over with when I got there.
You mentioned before we started that you were a forward observer.
Yes.
Was that your assignment on Tinian also?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, we didn't need the guns.
Oh, okay.
We had them bottled up in the one end of the island, and there wasn't too much to do except to try to just clean them out, bring them in as prisoners if possible, or if they fired on you, fire back.
I understand it was hard to get a Japanese prisoner. How'd you manage to take prisoners?
Well, I guess when they were starved out, exhausted, out of officers, they were just trying to keep from getting killed, and a lot of them did surrender. I guess I would have too under those circumstances.
Well, yeah. Well, then, it sounds like Tinian was not too grueling for you and your experience there.
No.
But you were in a rough battle later on. What did you do between the time you were on Tinian and the time you got to Okinawa?
We came back by order. We were on Tinian, and orders came through for me that they wanted me to study or take a course in coastline observation school, which means that they would take you by ship or sub close enough to the island shore and then turn you loose, and you had to go in there and map out the topography and where the reinforcements were or where the guns were if you could find it. And we had to practice our semaphore in order to send messages back and forth. And here I am out there I went to school. Come in on rubber rafts, 8 men to a raft.
You're a Navy SEAL.
And I hadn't thought about this for a while, but that's true. I think I spent about 3 weeks or a month going to coastline observation school.
Wow.
At the direction of, I guess, my commanding officer. All I know is I had to get aboard a plane, and it was a B-24, and I stood on the catwalk in the middle of it, and I could look right straight down to nothing when we flew from Tinian to Saipan. About a 3-minute flight.
Yeah.
But I completed that course. And then we got the word come back to Saipan, and we established a battalion area on Saipan, along with the rest of the other 2 battalions, 1st and 3rd Battalion of the 8th Regiment. We were all back in one regiment.
I see. Okay.
Now, my first real encounter with war is on Saipan. We were practicing how you fire guns, and if the gunner was shot, why somebody else had to take his place right away, fall out one, and then they'd move up. There were ammunition men, different duties connected with firing the mortars. And we were taking a little break, and I took a little walk up toward an abandoned farmhouse. And there was a little path leading to the house, the farmhouse. And as I walked up there, I saw a shoe out in the path, and I kind of kicked it, and it was heavy. And I looked in there, and the foot was still in it.
No kidding.
That was my first real introduction to the ferocity of war. You know. And then I continued on up to the house, and there was a well in the back of the house. And I looked down, and there was water in there. And there was also a body in there. And I looked at him, he was on his back, and I took a stone and I dropped it in there, and it hit him in the chest and stuck. Because he'd been in there for a while.
Can you tell, was it a soldier?
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure if he was a soldier or a civilian. But that had been a battle area, a deadly battle area.
Apparently so.
And
yeah.
I came back, I was pretty shaken.
I imagine. Yeah, your first real experience with that.
Yeah. And then, of course, from then on, we had air raids almost every night, and that got to be old hat almost.
When they would send the air raid signal up, what did you have to do?
Run to the foxhole.
Oh, okay.
We had foxholes prepared. We had to evacuate the tents. We lived in tents. Evacuate the tents and run to the foxhole.
Wow. At this time, were you getting mail from home, or were you able to send letters and all like that?
But you couldn't talk anything about that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, how long were you bivouacked there on Saipan?
That was our base. When we got ready for the Okinawa operation, that's everybody broke down the camps and everything, and landed. We got aboard LSTs and took out for Lord knows where, but it was Okinawa.
When did they tell you that's where you were headed?
Sorry?
How far into your trip did you figure it out it was Okinawa?
Well, I guess it was pretty close before they finally broke the news to us. We didn't know just where we were. We figured some of the men were very astute about which island it would be, and they hit that Okinawa right on the nose.
Wow.
They said, "Yeah, we're going to Okinawa," and nobody knew for sure. And so on Easter Sunday morning, April 1st, 1945, was the invasion of Okinawa. April 1st, Fool.
Yeah, sure.
April Fool. And the 2nd Division, that's a story if you want to hear that one. The 2nd Division was on the southern tip of Okinawa. And we all got overboard into those little Higgins boats and circle around as if we're going to come out to as skirmishers, and in we go. We kept on circling around. But what we did was we sucked the whole Japanese army to the south because we were afraid. And the 2nd and the 6th Division, the 1st and the 6th Division hit Okinawa amidships on the west side, and in a half an hour they had the island cut in half.
Wow.
It was a wonderful maneuver. And so we were there, and we had the full gamut of planes giving smoke screens on us, We had the kamikazes hit us,
Really?
hit LSTs, yeah, coming, trying to knock us out. But finally the word came out, the battleship Yamato, the biggest one they had, was coming at us. And they said, head for the open sea. The whole division, head for the open sea. We wound up going back to Saipan.
Huh.
So,
Wow.
but this is the battle plan for Okinawa. There were 3 divisions in the Corps. The 1st Division, 2nd Division, and the 6th Division. Because the 3rd, 4th, and 5th had been on Iwo Jima. So the 1st, 2nd, and 6th were assigned to Okinawa. And so the Corps General, he said, well, let's see, you always have 2 in assault and 1 in reserve. So I will name the 1st Division and the 6th Division as the assault divisions, and the 2nd Division is the one in reserve. We said, well, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
You know. So it got down to a 2nd Division being in reserve. Our commanding general said, and that is consisted of the 2nd, 6th, and 8th regiments of Futsal. The 10th regiment was the artillery, but 2nd, 6th, and 8th. I will, in case we are committed, the 2nd and the 6th division, regiment will be the assault regiment, and the 8th regiment will be in reserve. So we're the reserve or the reserve.
Yeah.
Oh, we thought this is getting better as we go. The regimental commander for 8th Regiment, with his 3 battalions, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, stated, oh, okay, if we are committed as a reserve, I will commit the 1st Battalion and the 3rd Battalion as, the assault, and the 2nd Battalion is in reserve. So we were the reserve, of the reserve, of the reserve. And I said, how safe can you be in wartime?
There you go.
You know? How about that? So, the Battle of Okinawa proceeded with the 2nd and 6th. All of a sudden, the word comes down, there's a little island north of Okinawa with radar stations and some aircraft on there and some artillery is a thorn in our side. Take it. Okay, so the Corps commander, he says, well, wait a minute, I got my divisions, I'll take it out of my 2nd division, my reserve. So it goes down to the 2nd division, and the commander says, well, okay, well, this little job you go on and do it, take it out of my reserve, which was the 8th Regiment. And it went down to the 2nd, to the 8th Regiment, and he said, well, so I'm going to send my reserve battalion. The 2nd Battalion, 8th Marine, the 2nd Marine Division, was the only battalion that went into action. So we had to load aboard ship and go and take that island north of Okinawa.
What island is it?
Ihayashima. Not EA. Early pile was EA.
That's the one I was thinking of, yeah.
Ihayashima was 40 miles north of Okinawa, and it was the last island taken by the Marines during the war.
Huh.
And guess who took it? The reserve of the reserve of the reserve. So,
tell us about that. Well, go ahead. I interrupted you.
well,
Go right
that's
ahead.
all right. Oh, okay. So here we are in the 2nd Battalion, 8th Regiment, 8th Marines, on a little island way out there, all by ourselves. And they said, why send these men back to the 2nd Division? They're close here. Let's attach them to the 1st Division.
Oh, boy.
And moved us right in it. We were on a line just like that.
Did you have any trouble taking Ihayashima?
Any trouble checking?
Taking that first island, that little island?
Piece of cake. It was a piece of cake.
Okay, good.
I think we had 2 killed.
Oh, boy.
2 killed.
Were there Japanese planes were still there? And
Yeah, Japanese planes and the radar installation and everything else. We shut that down right away.
How about the kamikazes you were talking about? Did you have any trouble with them?
At this point, Japan was in a state of confusion. They did not bother us at all. All the action was on Okinawa.
Got it, got it.
And so we clambered aboard the ships and went back to Okinawa, and I came in through Naha, which is the southern capital of Okinawa, Naha, and effected a passage of lines, and there we were on the line.
Were you in the north or in the south?
South.
In the south.
Because, they had pretty well controlled the northern half. That was, most of the fighting was in the south, Shiri Castle and all that, and we got all that stuff.
You were involved in Shuri Castle and
Yeah, right in around the area.
Sugarloaf? Were you involved in that?
No, I wasn't. I don't think I was. All I remember is we had our hands full wherever we were.
Tell us what happened as soon as they put you up on the line at Okinawa.
Well, we effected a night passage of lines, and the next day it was we were pinned down with the enemy fire. I wrote a letter to my parents. I said, "Well, you know, I'm on Okinawa, but I'm perfectly safe as long as I keep my head down, because I could see the tracer bullets going on over. I was down in a hole." Then there was a dead Japanese over on the side. But we were in, actual combat, contact with the enemy right away. And you never know whether a band of Japs would come in, or you just never, you had to be on guard at all times.
Wow.
And we were setting up traps for, not traps, but different places for roving bands of Japanese. I remember this one time, they said to Sullivan, you set up your men, you take half of the platoon and set up your men up on this hilltop, and catch them coming at you this way. So we started forward up that hill, and all of a sudden my line stopped. And I was right in the middle. And so I said, "What's the problem?" And he says, "We got a pillbox down here." So I went on down, and I could see the pillbox, and I knew that if we so much as stepped out in front of that pillbox, they'd shoot us in the back. And so I says, "Anybody got any phosphorus grenades?" I called for a couple of phosphorus grenades. Before I came over, and I hollered at him, "Dete koi," which meant come out. Nobody came out. And I could look in there just a peep and then back off, and I could see guys in there in uniform. So I gave them a phosphorus grenade to flush them out.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't come.
No kidding.
No, they would not come. Would not come. So I just had a guy with a satchel charge come up and dump it in there and let it go. Because for us to walk up there and try to take that hill would have been suicide.
So the opening for them to fire would have been right at your backs as you walked up that hill.
Yeah.
How did you happen to spot how did your men happen to spot the pillbox? Was it concealed?
I gave them the signal of as skirmishers, which means they spread out over a long line, and we just we were about 4 or 5 feet apart, walked up over that thing, and all of a sudden that line stopped.
Huh.
And they saw it in there. They saw it in there.
How many do you think were in there?
Well, I'd say probably 4 or 5 of them.
Was it big as this carpet then?
Oh yeah, every bit as wide as this carpet.
I'll be darned.
With that raised up that high and just facing out to field fire out that way.
Wow. Wow,
So,
that was lucky your men spotted that.
so we cleaned that out, and then I took the men up on the top of the hill, and the Japanese had dug trenches up there all the way across the top of that hill. So we just went right in the trench, took in the trench, and I had the men, and I only had a rifleman and one man with a Browning automatic rifle. And I put him on the left side because there was a valley coming up that way. I was right in the middle. And all of a sudden there was a fellow from Massachusetts stood up with his carbine, and he goes pop, 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 like that. And the Japanese had crawled up to within about 4 feet of our trenches, and nobody had seen him.
Wow.
So, and he was loaded too. I mean, so they fixed his clock right there.
Yeah, sure.
And then that night, we had two on, one man on, one man off situation. And all of a sudden, I hear Breckenfeld, that was the name of the guy with the Browning automatic rifle, open up down there. And the word came down, he says he caught a whole string of them coming up that draw.
Wow.
So I said, stay put, don't you dare budge. And we could call for flares from the mortars back, so we could look around and make sure that we were not getting surrounded or so. And the night passed okay, and the daylight came, and I'm looking down the side, and I see some dim figures right on the very end in a little fog like in the morning. And here is Breckenfield and a couple of the guys. I said, Breckenfield, where are you going? He said, oh, I'm going down to see if there's any souvenirs on.
Oh boy.
I says, get your tail back in there and don't you move. But we got killed 17 of them coming up that night.
Wow.
17 soldiers.
Did you fire too, or was it just the guys down on the
No,
left?
it was all the firing was on that side. And that Browning automatic was perfectly placed over there,
Good job.
you know.
Yeah.
So that was part of it.
How many nights had you been on Okinawa at this point? Sound like you hadn't been there very long.
I guess we'd been up there a couple of weeks, 10 days, I don't know.
Was it like this every night? You
Yeah,
had some
usually
kind of action
something.
at night?
Well, one other time we moved, we were changing positions, and apparently being relieved for a while. And we came up to a place, it was a little path with lots of trees on it, and a hillside running up toward high ground in front of us and off to the sides. And they said, you'll stay here tonight. Okay, so I dispersed the bandit, spread them out as much as I could, but for whatever room we had. And I stayed right in the middle, and there was a little drainage ditch, and I kind of hollowed it out so my hips could fit down in there. And I slept. We had security, I slept. The next morning, when it started to get light and start to move around, a voice came over. They said, Lieutenant, don't move. I said, what's the problem? Snipers.
Oh, jeez.
So laid there for a while, and then I could figure that they would fire in volleys. 3 or 4 of them would fire, and then they had the Springfield kind of rifle where they pull the bolt back and slide a bullet in, and that would give you about 3 or 4 seconds before they brought the weapon down. Well, I said, we'll try it after the next volley if you want to move, because I had a couple men around there with me. And we waited. I said, okay, no, after the next one, let's go. And then there came the volley, and we jumped up and grabbed our stuff. And Joseph Manarino was about from here as far away as he is. Picked up his pack, and they slung it over his shoulder, and sniper cut this finger off, right through the heart.
Oh my!
Killed him,
Wow.
right on the spot.
Wow.
Right on the spot.
Wow. How far away was the
hard.
sniper?
Sorry?
How far away was the sniper?
Oh, they were 150, 200 yards away, sniping at us. Yeah.
Wow.
He was the only son
Oh, that's too bad.
of a mother in Massachusetts.
Hmm.
We had to write letters to her.
Well, so the rest of you got out of that situation.
So that was, I had some men wounded with shrapnel. A lot of close calls. We could hear our shells coming in. They have a different sound than the Japanese shells. We could hear that coming in. One time, I don't know if it was a short round or so, but I heard shrapnel whizzing through the woods. If it had ever hit any of my men, it would cut them right in half.
Wow.
Off of these big shells that came in off of the Navy guns, our support.
Getting close.
So, Okinawa.
How many days were you in combat on Okinawa? Sounds
Oh,
like quite a few.
Gosh, I don't really know. I'd say, those campaigns move pretty fast. Well, I don't know, 10 days, 2 weeks, I don't know.
Was it more dangerous in the daytime or at night?
Well, we had our men on guard at night, so I felt a little bit easier. Danger was all around you. You just didn't know where it was.
Were you constantly advancing?
There was always something going on at night, though.
Yeah.
Moving of troops, bringing up ammunition, taking out the wounded.
Did you have any?
You don't sleep. You just don't sleep. I don't remember that I would fall asleep particularly any time during that period of time.
Well, as a forward observer, you must have had your binoculars. You must have seen quite a few Japanese to call in your fire missions.
Yeah. Yes, on a couple of my occasions, we had to fire for effect, which means all four guns just fire and shoot them as fast as you can. Yes, and those were when we found concentrations of Japanese,
Yeah.
and we just shoot the hell out of them.
Do you catch them out in the open very often?
No, they die in holes. They would die in holes. I saw one get killed. He was in a corn shucks, or
Yeah.
sugar canes.
Oh, sugar
Sugar canes, shuck, like a stacked corn though. And we saw him throw a grenade. He was maybe 50 yards away or so. And we saw him throw a grenade out there and see if he could get somebody. But that was a dead giveaway, and all they did was riddle that sugar cane, and that's where he died.
That was a desperate move on his part. I mean, come on. Wow.
So,
Did you ever have any hand-to-hand combat?
no, not that I had to. This one that came in close would have gotten us.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty close. Then there was one other time I saw they could crawl in those little water ditches, and I was damned if you could see them. And they finally caught one, and he was still laying in there when I heard the shooting and everything. I didn't know he was that close.
Huh.
He could have got us.
Wow. Sometimes you hear the stories of the bonsai charges at night and they get right up on the trenches.
No, I didn't have to fend off an attacker. I've seen it.
You have?
Back in Saipan, when we were in tents and getting ready for Okinawa, the Japanese had come out of the hills, those that were way up in the top of the mountains. And one Japanese came into a tent one time, and I don't know what he was going to do, whether he was looking for food or whatever it was, but the Marine that was sleeping there, one of the Marines, just went out of his mind. It just frightened him so badly to wake out of a sound sleep and see a engine of death over you.
Wow.
That they had to take him away. He was absolutely bananas.
Had he been in combat previously?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I saw that. Also, in combat, it's not combat, but they had so many Japanese soldiers that were still up in the mountains. Even though they say the island is secure, don't you believe it? That on my birthday, November the 15th of 1944, November the 15th, when Saipan was supposed to have been secured, we had a rabbit hunt.
What's a rabbit hunt?
The 2nd Division started at the south end, 2nd Regiment started at the south end, came forth. The 6th Regiment started at there, and they worked toward the 2nd. And the 8th went to the end of the island and came south. And we were assigned as camp security. We thought, that's a pretty good deal. Camp security. We don't have to go out there and do that. But what they did was they flushed all those Japs down into our camp.
Wow.
And we had Japs running up and down the street.
Get out of here.
And we had one whale of a time.
No kidding. Were they armed?
Sure, armed and just as dangerous. We had a major killed with machine gun fire.
Wow.
So I said, gee, I'm sure glad when the rest of the battalion got down there. I said, get them out of here.
How many were there?
Japs?
Yeah.
Oh, it must have been a dozen of them going in and around, and everyone could fire at you.
Oh my gosh.
So we finally survived that.
Yeah.
But they did kill a lot of them.
That's amazing. Did you have the same thing going on Okinawa? With these
Maybe, but we didn't stay.
Okay.
As soon as the island had been secured, they took us back to Saipan. And as I remember, we were on an LST, one of the most pleasant voyages in the sea that I've ever had. Because we didn't have to do a thing. Music all day long. Coffee was always available. And we were only at 50% of our manhood, 50% casualties.
Wow.
We had.
Wow.
Out of our company, headquarters company.
Wow. How many men did you lose in your company on
I just
Okinawa?
lost the one,
Mariana. Yeah.
But I had some wounded that were not with us. Petrie was also one of my forward observers. He got shrapnel.
He
Damn
survived?
little pieces of shrapnel just cut him, not critically, but badly. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still, as a matter of fact, I still hear from his wife. You know, I must have a half a dozen wives, widows now, that I send Christmas cards to and talk about
Wonderful.
how it is. Just beautiful.
That's great.
Just beautiful.
Well, Dennis was telling me before we started that you eventually found your way onto the island of Japan at the end of the war.
I found a way to...
You were on the island of Japan at the end of
Yes.
the war. How did that come about?
Well, we were back on Saipan when the armistice was declared, when the bomb was dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that the war was going to be over pretty soon. And in due course of time, it seemed like the bomb was dropped and everything was going so fast, they said, load, get aboard. And we were the first troops into Nagasaki.
No kidding. What did it look like?
Well, I saw bodies floating in the bay.
Wow.
I saw the high jetties. I guess there's a walls like around the bay, and then on top of those walls were piled high soybeans, full of soybeans, sacks of soybeans. They'd been out there for, I guess, most of the summer, and they were rotting. And they smelled so bad when we came in there that you could hardly catch your breath.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, but, and this is a very important point to me that I'm going to tell you about. We got into these little Higgins boats again, coming off of the APAs and AKAs. Those are the troop ships. Got in there, and then we made out in lines, and then we came on ashore. I was standing up by the 50 caliber machine gun. We didn't know what to expect. Here we were coming in for the first time. Didn't know what kind of a reaction, reception, or anything. And of course, we were a little apprehensive.
Yeah.
Because you walk into a trap, you're really in one now. And I turned around and looked out over my men who were in the back part of the little Higgins boat. And I looked out on the horizon, as far, just right, right as far as you could see, to the horizon, all the way around my rear back was nothing but battleships, aircraft carriers, cruisers,
wow,
destroyers. I was never so proud in my life.
Wow.
I knew that Big Brother was looking over our shoulder.
Oh yeah.
And the slightest little wiggle on shore was going to be met with plenty.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That was a proud feeling to look at that array of warships.
Must have been amazing.
Magnificent.
Wow. Was it a sunny day so you could see?
Sir?
Was it a sunny day and you could see beautifully for a great distance?
Yeah, it was a nice clear day. Oh, absolutely nice clear day. From one end, as far as I could see, land here and land here, but as far all complete.
Amazing.
It's just side by side.
Wow.
All guns aimed and cocked.
Wow.
So when we got in, we moved inland a little bit. We debarked from the Higgins boats and moved in. We had to get away from those soybeans. That was terrible. And we started to look at the city. And I remember we had to get aboard a train and chug right through the middle of the city. It's built like a big bowl. Excuse me. Built like a big bowl, and with the hills up on top. And we went right through the middle of that. And I remember one of the memories that I have was that there was a radio tower with the steel structure sticking way up in the air. You know how they stick. It was bent over, and the tip was touching the ground.
Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing. It's melted.
The heat and the blast combined. And for something that you could relate to, if you were on Central Avenue here, and you looked across, you could see all the way over to Broadway. There was not one stone on top of another.
Wow.
The whole downtown, whole city was wiped out.
Totally flat. Wow. Wow.
So, and we went right up through it, and I don't think anybody had any Geiger counters, so, you know, they say, oh, I'm all right.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you see any Japanese civilians?
No.
Nobody.
No, just the workers around the dock.
Huh.
When we went up there, there was no signs of life in through there at all.
I'll be darned.
And we went up to the top of the hill and to a place called Isahaya, which was a sort of a boys' school where we took over for the time being.
Wow.
And then we started doing the normal occupational duties of just going around, I guess, trying to, if people were in desperate condition, we'd help them. Or just give them a semblance of order. I think everything was in chaos. Everything stopped. And we got to start it again.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So.
Amazing. Well, you had some experiences.
Quite an experience. Quite an experience, yep.
What did you do as the war wound down? The war was over at this point. Did you stay in the Marine Corps, or did you?
Well, I stayed there for a while because I was assigned a disposition, like I told you, going out into the countryside and gathering up war material. Ammunition, I would arrange for it to be transported to the coast, and then they loaded it aboard ships and take it out to sea and dump it.
Huh.
I remember very specifically one occasion where a temple, a Japanese temple, pagodas and all, took in a whole block, a great big whole block. And they don't have walls to them there. It was up on pillars. It just had a roof. That's normally the way they live over there, this temple particularly. So there was one great big area under a pagoda roof, loaded with gasoline.
No kidding.
Loaded with a gasoline. I mean, these 55-gallon drums stacked up 10 high, as many as you could get them up to the roof.
Wow.
Yeah. Gas masks. I found gas masks, which was my duty to destroy. And so I enlisted some of the local people with these bolts, these bolts with a screw on it. Long as you just take it and knock the eyepieces out. The minute you do that, why the mask is shot. And we had a lot of, but the leather that it was made of was the best leather that they could get their hands on. All the military could get everything. And I said to the town elders, because I only dealt with them, you know, is there anything can we do anything with this leather to benefit the people? And they were walking on those wooden shoes, those gaitas.
Yeah.
Because our normal shoes were all worn out. The leather was worn out. I said, take this leather and put it on their shoes, and just spread it out among the cobblers in there, and so that they could have their shoes repaired.
Good idea.
And that's why I got that flag there, because they had a banquet for us afterwards.
That's nice. That was a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost out of tape. probably only have a couple minutes left. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wind down?
Well, I don't know. I learned a lot
Yeah.
as a student child, going into the Marine Corps, doing what I had to do. The discipline that I learned, I follow to this day. You notice I'm still wearing a Marine Corps watch.
I see that. Yep.
And I have a flag of the Marine Corps in my den at home. In many ways, it was a magnificent experience. Hard, tragic, awful, but it did something to me that has stayed with me all my life.
Wonderful. I appreciate
And I
your
never
service.
regret joining the Marine Corps.
Terrific. Thank you very much for your time and
Okay.
your service to the country. It's been a
My
terrific
pleasure.
interview. I'm so glad you did this.
Okay.